Hello friends and welcome to my channel for another custom action figure video. This is a showcase of my current slate of 2025 Superman movie figures. I recently did a video on the Superman that's actually a 2.0 version of one that I posted several months ago, and I've actually made a few changes to it since the last video, and I'll get into those in a moment. But this is my sort of placeholder shelf display while I get a diorama built for this, so that'll be another video coming soon. But I've made now 3 other figures, probably the easiest one being Metamorpho, a somewhat medium difficulty being Lex Luthor, and then extra super hard level difficulty setting was Mr. Terrific. Oh, also Crypto I repainted too. I showed that in the last video as well. So we're gonna get in close and take a look at the figures first with the changes on Superman, and then going on down the line to the other figures. So let's go ahead and get into it. So as mentioned before in my previous videos, this is my custom Superman. It's a whole thing and there's a whole video on it. Most recently what I've done is I changed the collar. It wasn't quite the right cut, so I needed to trim it and kind of open it up a little bit at the base of the neck. And I think it looks a lot more accurate now. And then as far as the head, so that's an original head sculpt that I created myself, printed and painted. Something just wasn't sitting right with me about it. I couldn't figure out what it was because the sculpt is very accurate. You know, you can see in the last video, I did a transparency comparison to several photos of David Cornswet as I was sculpting it and the final result, and it matches up pretty much 1-to-1. I mean, it's as perfect a likeness as I could get it. So I couldn't figure out why it just wasn't, something was off to me, and I realized it was the hairline. For whatever reason, I think when you see it in actual color and all that, there's just kind of a difference. And also just the way that like hair as it thins when it comes up to the hairline itself, depending on how the light is hitting it, it can look further back or further forward. So I ended up sort of reconsidering what I had done with it and then just tightening it up and painting it in a little bit more closely. It just wasn't far up enough, I think, in certain areas. So doing that, I think, really brought it into a more accurate state. So I'm really pleased with that. So that's all I did to Superman from the last video. So now let's take a look at Metamorpho. All right, taking a look at Metamorpho here. And I've done a few things to him, but not a ton. So I swapped out his ankle pegs. They were previously, you know, made to match the legs here, and they were just very tall. I've talked about this before on the channel, but McFarlane figures are just, they have the wonkiest proportion. It just makes them look really lanky and their heads look too small. So I did that here. I actually used, I think these were wrist pegs from the Flash movie Supergirl. They were the right size that I wanted to give them the height I was looking for, and then I just kind of painted them to match. You can still see some of the blue peek through at certain angles, but as it stands on the shelf, it's not really very visible. So I'm perfectly fine with how it ended up. I also gave him a little bit of a blue wash on the side of his head here, just to bring out this patterning a bit more. It's a lot more obvious when you look at like set photos of him and stuff like that. So I just wanted to kind of bring that out. But all in all, this figure, I think, just out of the box looks really good. It's got great paint apps on the eyes. I haven't changed the eyes at all. I thought about doing it, but I was like, these look pretty good. I think the sculpt is fantastic. I think it's got good articulation, especially for like all the, you know, texturing that it has. You know, once I get an opportunity to see the movie again and really study what Metamorpho looks like in it, I might add some washes just to darken up some of the recesses in here, but I think it looks great as is. So the only other thing I did, and it's pretty significant, I removed what we call the diaper piece, the piece that covers this part of him, and then I whittled down the extra chunky plastic on the legs. And then I had these gray shorts that I had to dye with some black leather paint watered down to make them the right kind of gray. And then I took some elastic banding that I save for projects like this, and then some black pleather that I had, and cut these strips and glued them on. And so now he has soft goods shorts and just fits in better with my overall like soft goods approach to these figures. Next, we'll take a look at Lex Luthor here. So Lex is fairly simple, but it was actually very difficult. So the body is the Aton Custom John Wick 4 body. It came in a 4-pack, and I bought it specifically because I wanted to use them for customs. So this was perfect for me in terms of doing that. Now the head is from the McFarlane figure. It came with 3 different heads, and this was the expression I liked the best. And so I painted that up to look lifelike. It's hard to see in this light, but I actually gave him just the slightest hint of like the hair, shadow that he would have from shaving his head, because, Nicholas Hoult has a full head of hair and the follicles are still present under his scalp. So I wanted to make it look like that was the case. The Aton Custom John Wick came with a head neck combo. So I needed a neck for this guy. And for that, I used just a Noda Studios blank body neck that I had. The neck and the body were made by the same company, but they didn't connect the same way. They weren't compatible. So I had to do a ton of drilling and dremeling to get the neck to be compatible onto the shoulders. And then from there, getting the head onto the neck was a breeze. So yeah, other than that, this, I didn't do anything to this body. The suit is how it came. It's this nice dark blue shirt with a black suit and tie. And I thought that it fit this Lex pretty perfectly. All right, now we're taking a look at Mr. Terrific. Now, this is one of the hardest customs I've ever made. This was really difficult. We'll look at him in a little bit different lighting shortly here. The way that he's positioned in this cabinet, it's kind of doing this weird yellow reflective thing. So his torso is not actually yellow. It just is the way that the light is bouncing off of it. This thing was a real undertaking, and it took me quite a while to make this one. But first I want to take a look at the head sculpt. So here's the finished version. Now this actually started as a Mezco T'Challa head sculpt. I had an extra one from a Black Panther figure that I picked up for parts. So here's what it looked like when I started. And this was a really great base to start with because it already fit perfectly on a Mezco neck. And, it had ears and eyes and a nose and a mouth, and, all the things that are very, very difficult to sculpt by hand. Here it is with the Aves epoxy sculpt applied to the face. So I actually sanded down the beard first and then sculpted out the face based on a bunch of reference photos, as well as a 3D reference I used of the 12-inch Spin Master figure of Mr. Terrific. Then I added the hair and let it set overnight before I painted it. Now, I thought about digitally sculpting and 3D printing a head for him, and I might still do that in the future at some point, but this was a really fun way to just kind of get it done. 3D printing is a whole ordeal, and I don't really enjoy it. Even though I love the results of it, this was a nice way to just kind of like tackle it all, not using digital stuff to create this one. So here it is next to T'Challa for comparison. You can see it's a totally different sculpt at this point. So that's always kind of fun when I'm able to sort of bring out a different likeness out of an existing head sculpt. I've done that a few times over the years, and this is the first time I've done it in a while, but I had a lot of fun with it. Now let's take a look at the hardest part of this whole build, and probably of any figure I've ever made, the jacket. So this started out as a jacket and pants combo that I got from GPS Lot on eBay. They are a seller of 1/12 scale soft goods, and I think this was like the military outfit is what it was labeled as, something like that. I took the jacket as it was, and I thought this is actually a pretty good cut in terms of like the trim lines and stuff for a base for Mr. Terrific. Now, luckily I already had this, so I didn't have to go buying it. I simply started in with the white and black leather paint just to give it a different, more leathery texture. And then I lined it with red spandex and essentially glued it on into all of the trim places. So it's on there very securely, and it is fabric instead of paint, which I like a lot because it just has a different look and a different texture. The Terrific on the back I hand painted, so I used, again, Angelus leather paint. I mixed a red color that I wanted and then just painted that on and then painted black over it. The shoulder bits are a thin, pleathery material. It was actually a Batman cape that I had picked up for another figure a long time ago. So I cut that into strips, and I actually had to score it. And then the torso is actually white spandex that I pulled on over the figure itself. And then the black parts are black spandex that I cut to fit over that. So it's a bunch of layering and a bunch of painting. The pants, same process. And then I made the knee pads out of styrene, which is a thin plastic card material. Painted them with the same leather paint and then added the same strip of red to the center. And then the boots, those are from the McFarlane figure, so I was able to find one of those. Both needed a little bit of a repaint. The boots didn't have the accurate white on them. They were just black and red. The logo on the center I made out of a sheet of white iron-on vinyl, but the difference was instead of peeling off the backing layer and ironing it on, I actually left the backing layer on it because it is very, very thin plastic and it's reflective, and it makes the perfect finish. And then I just super glued that onto the piece of diamond shaped fabric that I cut out for the middle of the chest. The belt is also that same thin styrene. And then for the lettering on the sleeves, that is more of that iron-on vinyl, but I actually cut those letters out individually, and I had to do it like 5 times per letter just about because I kept having them mess up, or, you know, something would happen. I'd lose one because they're very small, or when I went to iron them on, they got all messed up and I had to start over. That was the hardest part of this whole thing. And knowing that I had to do it twice was just like, oh, this sucks. But I'm pleased with how it turned out for sure. A couple of other little details. Those little bits on his collar I made from cutting up pieces of pleather and gluing them on and then painting them all together with the collar. The hands are also from the McFarlane figure with a little bit of repaint touch up. And then that brings it all together. So very pleased to have this one. You know, this is a figure that I started to think about and I was like, how am I even going to do that? And, you know, my brain got working on it, and then I just decided, you know what, I'm going to do it because I love the way this character looks. I love the stark contrast of the red and the white and the black. And I don't have enough characters of color on my shelves. Like, they just don't make as many. So it feels good to have a little bit more representation, a little bit more diversity on my shelves. And I'm looking forward to making a Hawk Girl next, as well as a new Fortress diorama to replace. This is just the McFarlane like superpowers version that I picked up. So there you have it. This is the collection in its current state. Somebody was kind enough to send me some robot stickers to change the numbers on their chest plates. So that's going to be coming soon. I do want to repaint these guys as well, and I'll be sharing a link and the name of the creator of those stickers and all that. Yeah, we'll take a quick look at this. This is a sketch I worked up today of what the diorama of the fortress is going to look like. I loved the way that looked in the movie. I loved that set, and it was cool to see Superman have like a legit fortress instead of just like a weird crystally cave that you're like, where does he sit? Like, where do you do anything? I don't understand. So I enjoyed that part of the movie for sure. I enjoyed the movie overall. It wasn't my favorite. I had a lot of problems with it from a storytelling perspective. I won't get into that here, but all that is to say that, you know, the Snyderverse taught me that I can really love the casting and the character designs without really fully loving the movies. And so I'm carrying that same spirit forward into this one and just enjoying the ride. So I'm going to keep building this shelf out, and, you know, we'll ping pong back and forth between this and other stuff. I still have some Ninja Turtle figures I need to make and other stuff in, you know, different areas of interest. But yeah, that's going to do it for this one. I want to thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed this, please hit the like button. You know, that helps other people find it, and share it with a friend if they're into Superman, or if they enjoyed the movie. I'm a full-time comic book writer and artist. You can check out links below to some of the books that I have available. I'm really proud of them, and I'd love for you to check them out. So until next time, keep your head on swivel.